Our Lord had something to say about the least among us. And out of the grief and the fury and the bewilderment of the wanton destruction of the 269 whom we mourn today, comes the realization that love rises above the clamor and that learning emerges from the depths of hurt and sorrow. So many of us here today knew personally and admired and loved Larry McDonald. We were, and we are, and we always will be stunned at the suddenness of the absence of his physical presence among us. But because of the life that he lived and the courage that lifted him above the crowd, and the principles to which he was always faithful, he is and he always will be a part of the American dream of liberty and justice. So the lives of Larry McDonald and the other 268 will, in fact, they must serve as our passports to an understanding of tyranny and of brutality, and a reminder of the sacrifices of men and women and children too. Down through the years, the sacrifices that have nudged this world just a little closer to civilization. I think Larry would want me to mention two little girls who were on the plane with him that night. Maybe you never saw them, but they provide a dimension that must not be overlooked in our assessment of what life is really all about. Senator Helms and Congressman Hubbard of Kentucky and I were on a plane that arrived in Anchorage a few minutes after KAL007. Our plane had come from California. KAL007 had come from New York, and both, as has been indicated here this afternoon, were on the way to Seoul. And since the scheduled stopover of both planes was more than an hour, passengers from both aircraft deplaned, and we commingled in the terminal. And it was there that I met many people, but the most memorable family that I met that evening, young, wholesome, handsome young father, lovely mother, and their two little girls, 3 and 5. The 3-year-old was sitting on the mother's lap. The 5-year-old was perched on the arm of the chair. The mother was reading a story, and the little ones were listening intently, interrupting with questions occasionally, completely engrossed as the mother read and explained. And then the storybook was laid aside with the mother's suggestion, and we've all done it, that the little girls look at their picture books for a little while. And that was my opportunity. And that's when, Kathy, I did what Larry McDonald would have done. I moved over and introduced myself, and I sat down with the children, and the 3-year-old climbed on my lap. And we began to play a little silly game that my grandchildren enjoy, the oil truck running down their arms and making deliveries at each house, you know. I'll never forget the giggles, and I'll never forget that the little one in particular thrust forth her arm and said repeatedly, "Do it again." And I did it again, and I did it again over and over until the public address system announced the impending departure of Flight KAL007. And it was then that the little girls hugged this stranger's neck, kissed him on the cheek, and waving and blowing kisses, scampered through the door with their parents and boarded that plane. Now, my dear friends, it's difficult to speak now of that purely personal vignette, the shock and horror and anger that I felt and I still feel about the wanton, deliberate, premeditated, callous, cruel destruction of 269 innocent people, including those lovable 2 little girls. And I have prayed, and I think we all should, for self-restraint. And I know the Lord is trying to help me with that. But my problem is I keep seeing those 2 little girls blowing the kisses and waving goodbye. And I can hear the little one say, "Do it again." And oh, how I wish I could. Tennyson put it this way: "But oh, for the touch of a vanished hand and the sound of a voice that is still." That option is not open to us this afternoon. But we do have the option of remembering the courage and the principles and the resoluteness of Larry McDonald. We have the option of lifting our prayers for the 269 and their grieved loved ones. And in the process, let us hope and pray that we have learned a little more about strength and dedication and truth, and most of all, duty. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for arranging this meeting, and God bless all of you for coming out this afternoon. I love you all.